Good morning. Good morning. I am impressed. I'm very happy with the turnout. On behalf of the TVCC Civics Division, I would like to welcome you to an event that we're calling it Untold Stories. And this is the kind of thing that we used to do, but we haven't done it in a very long time. And we are hoping that this will be the first of many events like this to come in the future. The Civics Division is comprised of history, government, philosophy, humanities, and each one of our speakers today has a story to tell that weaves components of all this together. Government policies affect people's lives, and they don't come out of nowhere. There's a history that leads to them. And many times we look at what's going on and we think, there's something wrong with that. And we fundamentally ask, what does it mean for someone to be a whole and functioning human in our society? And so I am looking forward to what our guests this morning have to say to us. Our speakers today happen to be women of color. We did not design it that way. We were looking for people with interesting stories to tell. And while each of these women speaks from their personal experience, they don't speak for their group. They speak as an individual, and I look forward to learning from what they have to say this morning. Now, a few housekeeping issues. Hopefully, everyone got a note card as you walked in. If you did not, then kind of look around or raise your hand, and we will try to get you one. But the note cards are there for the Q&A that will happen at the end. And so if you need a note card, please let us get that to you and write on the note card a question that you would like to ask one or all of our speakers. The other housekeeping item. I know we have students in here. I know some of your classes have been relocated here. If you have a 1050 class that you have to go to, we're not stopping. We're not taking a break. If you need to leave, then just please get up and leave quietly. I'm glad you could make it to whatever you can stay for. I once heard a quote from an author. I think his name was David Epstein. And he said that the object of education is not the subject matter, but it is the self. We educate ourselves in order to be changed and to grow. And I'm hoping that you will listen with that in mind this morning. I think the stories that our speakers have to say this morning will challenge some of us, and I hope you will first listen and understand before making any kind of judgment. And with that, Tatum is going to introduce our first speaker and read their biography.
Hello. Sunshine is an indigenous educator and resistance artist from the Karankawa Hawk clan. She currently works as a specialist for the Health and Wellness Resort, where she has been inspired by Karankawa spirituality and ideology to hold space and to educate others to reconnect to the natural world, undo harmful colonial rhetoric, and find peace within themselves and Mother Earth. Her goal is to protect and serve people, the original land stewards, and to educate those who are seeking it. On this journey, she has organized protests for her people, spoken at call to actions advocating for repatriation, reparations, and basic human rights, designed and offered classes and lectures, as well as shown in gallery spaces across Austin, Texas. Her most recent goal is to heal her spirit through rest and creation, to stay close to her and herself, and to continue decolonizing by choosing peace and happiness, even if it seems as it's not an option. Please welcome Sunshine.
Hello. Let me fix this. Good morning. All right. So, ha'ahi, nayem natadokwa se hinay tanong karangkwa kadla kidala. Hello, my name is Dotwa Sehi. That's my tribal name. It translates into English as sunshine. But the name that my mother gave me when I was a child, and I still have, is Kiara. I'm a Karankwa Kadla woman from the Hawk clan. And today I'll be speaking with y'all about my struggles, my life, but also about decolonizing the way we view indigeneity. And so, before I get into what exactly that means, decolonizing indigeneity, for all of us here, I'd like for us to take just a little bit of time and imagine a Native American in your mind. Imagine one. Keep that in there. So, when I say decolonizing, I define it personally as a verb, and it is to ask ourselves every day, what am I willing to do to undo harmful structures that were put in place during colonization that intended to oppress, kill, and displace indigenous peoples and their relatives off their homelands, and exist to this day. For these structures and systems that were put in place might just be a blip in history, but they do echo in these contemporary spaces. For example, the terminology of calling someone, whether it is someone alive today or in the past, a slave versus enslaved, matters. One terminology was coined during colonization to create an idea of ownership and finality, the ability to own someone. That doesn't exist. And the other implies the truth, that this is done to someone, not what someone is. That's an act of decolonizing, to understand there's a huge difference. And so, when we're talking about decolonizing indigeneity, I'm referring to the work we all must do to undo the biases, assumptions, and lies we've been told, specifically what exactly it means to be indigenous. And even more specifically, I'm talking about the terminology of Native Americans or American Indians. Most folks, when we think of a Native American, we automatically create imagery in our brains. In most cases, it's a stereotype. For some of us here, when we were asked to imagine a Native American, you might have imagined somebody wearing a headdress, or wearing regalia, smoking a pipe, shooting a bow and an arrow. But how about somebody standing behind a podium? And so this is what we have been given. And it's a shame, because oftentimes, us Native Americans, us indigenous people, even though we are known to be mascots, cigarette cartons, dolls, paintings, savages in movies, and dream catchers hung in homes, we are also teachers, doctors, scientists, mothers and fathers. And, my God, I know that it's not fair. I know that plenty is not fair. But this is a complete dehumanization of not just my people, but all indigenous people. And so, when you see those images in your mind of a Native American, I want to ask you, who gave them to you? What is your mind remembering? Where did it come from? So we'll decolonize it. Before I do, though, I'll tell you a little about me, how I got here. So I was born in Virginia. I was one of the few people in my lineage not born in Texas. My people's ancestral and contemporary homeland, some say for at least the last 800 generations, has been the coast of Texas. Our territory goes as far down south as South Padre Island, working our way up the coast to Galveston, and then we go as far inland as northern Houston. So if you're looking at the shape of Texas in your mind, we make a crescent on the coast. And we have been there for a very long time, before the Spanish, before the French, before any ships arrived, before the records go back, we were there, and we still are. Some of us have creation stories that still exist to this day. A place that was before industrialization, before the land had even us two-legged people on it. Some creation stories recall a time where we might have been four-legged, and we were pulled from deep waters or guided along the coast by the winds. So us, Karankawa Kadla, we are the lineal descendants of the Karankawa. Some of us might have heard about my ancestors in history classes for like a unit, perhaps, a paragraph. And my people now are very small. And that's just because of how history worked out for us. And so, how history worked out for us is a bit sad. And it starts, this concept of decolonizing indigeneity, right there. You see, before any settlers got here, we didn't call ourselves indigenous, or native, or original. We were just Karankawa. We were there. We were the people. And Karankawa is said at times to be translated to raisers of children, or lovers of dogs, as evidenced by our ability to domesticate the dog, you're welcome, and of our culture's way of loving our children dearly. And around us, the Karankawa, were other people, and they had names. And actually, we would have, way back when, and still to this day, marked our face. These tattoos I wear are called bachmanai. They are my ancestors' way of marking our faces to indicate to the other people who we belonged to. Karankawa, not Indian, not Native American, not indigenous. The idea of indigeneity can be traced back to the 1590s, being defined as born or originating from a particular place. It has roots in late Latin indigenous, to be born in country, and indigena, to spring from a land. It is a flexible adjective that implies the ability to be born in or from a place, and as it's indicated in Old Latin, specifically Archaic Indo. The prefix indu, which means in or within, and jignere, which means to beget or produce, is how we get to our understanding of indigenous today. All that is to say that the concept of indigeneity has always been used to describe the flora, the fauna, and the people. But in the year 1915, it starts to grow. If we research how often this word appears in historical texts, we can see that by 1980, it appears 9 million times and booms by the early 2000s, up, 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 which is thanks to liberation movements of indigenous, so-called indigenous peoples, and our ability to have accessible internet. So by 2003, American citizens were looking up indigenous 17 million times a year, and rising, alongside the U.S. Census's Bureau data of people who identified as Native American. And for many of us indigenous Texans, we lived on these lands, now called Texas, for at least the last 10,000 years. And not only did we live there, but we thrived. Lots of history passed. Colonizers came, killed a lot of people. And for many of us indigenous people, the devastation that befell us was irreparable. The trauma continues to echo through the lives of its descendants. It's now referred to as generational trauma. But for some of us indigenous people, Even the concept of indigeneity was taken from us. You see, for many of us Southern indigenous folks who are indigenous, are Native American, lineal descendants, our names were taken from us. The existence of not just us, but of our indigeneity was denied. And so, Stephen Austin, the father of Texas, said about my people, the Karankawa specifically, that an American population will be the signal of their extermination, for there will be no way of subduing them but extermination. For some tribes, the goal was to put them on reservations. For others, the goal was extermination. Our histories were equally devastating, but the methodology of the devastation is different depending on where you fell on the map. When you imagine a Native American, you are imagining who was allowed to be. Or you're imagining whatever dominating socio-political group of whatever modern-day society has decided to show you. And better yet, you might just be imagining a Native American that we have decided to let you in on. And sure, a lot of us have spread around. Nowadays, us Karankawa aren't just here in Texas. We're just like you. We've moved different places. We wear normal clothes. We have normal jobs. But for many of my relatives, we're still looking for them. We're trying to find them. Many call themselves Mexican. Many call themselves Chicano or Tejano. But we are Karankawa, and we have always been. And the colonizers wanted my people dead, to be, quote, but an unpleasant memory. And so that brief glimpse into history right now, that came from me, a Karankawa woman who was taught by her mother and the community around her, her elders. I ask you, where did your history come from? It's a simple conversation of perspective. Why have we, since the beginning of the establishment of the so-called United States, only trusted one perspective? We could talk about that all day. I don't got time. But since the beginning, lies have been told about my people in efforts to continue genocide, the oppression of my people, calling us giants, savages, cannibals. Not true. I'm 5'2", so there's that. And so when I ask people, where are you from? Most times they might say, like, oh, I'm from here. Or I'm American, I'm a Texan. Some even say I'm a native Texan. But even you too, you're suffering from the severing of your roots, your own indigeneity, the poison of colonization and the state of being imposed upon, because you see, all things on this earth have roots and all people belong somewhere. And you've been taught this is silly, but it's not. And you've been paid to forget. And most of us accept that payment, that's fine. But it's unsustainable. Think about the world right now. How many people are still fighting to own land that God said is theirs? And think about the silliness of it. And the kicker to it all is that we are taught that this battle can be won or lost. It can't. The earth shows us that there's no winners, there's no victors, there's just turns. And right now it's y'all's turn. A little bit before it was my people's turn. It was for a long time. But y'all's turn won't last forever. And when it comes to a close, I wonder where you will return to. When I went to school, I was in a freshman orientation, and they did this thing where the speaker on stage would ask us to rise with every question if it resonated with us. For example, he would ask things like, if you come from a single-parent household, stand up, and we'd stand up. And it was meant to show how much we had in common with each other. And so he asked questions like, if you identify as white or Caucasian, stand up, and the whole room would stand up. And then he asked, if you identify as Native American, Indigenous, or First Nations, stand up. And so I stood, and in a body of 800, there were 2 other people who stood up. And then he said, thank you. And I sat down. And in that moment, something in me changed, and it brought me where I am here with you today. I refused to believe we were all gone and that something was wrong. Just how we were taught about what exactly it means to be Native, Indigenous. We're still here, not just the Karankawa, but the Kwahuiltec, the Humano, the Lipanapache, the Inde. All of us, we're still here. And so when you imagine a Native American, I hope you see us, and I hope you ask yourself, where do you come from? My people have been here for around the last 20,000 years, and we will keep making more. And we will be here for a very long time. We're from here. Where are you from? Plabeus. Thank you.
Hello. Pastor Isabelle Marquez holds a role as the Associate Pastor at Oak Lawn United Methodist Church. Additionally, she serves as the lead pastor of Garcia Viva Church Plant, a unique and inclusive Spanish congregation with a special focus on the LGBTQ community. Isabelle's passion for social justice is evident in her significant participation in immigration and LGBTQ plus advocacy. Presently, she plays a vital role as the site coordinator at the Dallas Response Welcoming Center. This center plays a crucial role in facilitating a smooth transition for individuals and families seeking asylum, serving as a vital link between the detention center and those in need. This group also takes a proactive approach by informing the community about their rights, organizing and hosting Know Your Rights sessions and workshop focused on immigration and citizenship. The next step on this is to have legal and medical clinics to serve the community better. Isabelle and her wife Victoria played an important role in the transformative journey towards achieving marriage equality in Dallas as the only Hispanic representation in this group. As an impassioned advocate, she and her wife dedicated their time and efforts to the advocacy group that tirelessly worked to dismantle barriers and secure the right for same-sex couples to marry. In her personal life, Isabelle shares a profound connection with her spouse, Victoria Estrada, spanning 21 years of marriage. The couple is blessed with 3 children, and their household is complete with the presence of 2 chihuahuas. Please welcome Pastor Isabelle Marquez.
Good morning again. First, I want to thank you for the people who organized this panel and this conversation. I think stories are important, and I believe that stories have the power to change our lives. So I wanted today to tell you a story that transcends headlines, statistics, and political debates. It is a story about the power of empathy and the significance of building bridges and the untold stories of asylum seekers. So I want to humanize the stories today of the untold stories of those asylum seekers. And I was raised on Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, which is a city at the border. And I never thought about immigration or seen the difference of immigration until I was here in the US. For me, it was normal to have a cookout near the river and see people crossing the river. It was normal. It was normal for me to see people from all over the world and to be waiting on my city for an opportunity. Some of them stood at my house. My mother and my father always opened their home for all these people. So I am being always in this mix of culture intertwined, not just in a geographical location, but in a profound intersection of lives and untold stories. My own story remained untold until 2019, when a humanitarian crisis at the border demanded urgent attention. And like I shared before, I intimately understand today's immigration journey. I fled my country when I was 17, escaping the cartel's violence. My father was the chief of the police on my city. So one time the cartels went to my school and shut the school. My father thought that I was in danger, and the only option that they had, my parents, it was to send me across the river. So as an authorized minor crossing to this country, I was detained for nearly 5 months in a detention center. I was incommunicated, nobody knew where I was, and it was just a time of waiting, not knowing, well, what it was about to happen. So when I talk about immigration, I know what it is to escape. I know what it is to leave your family, your friends, and to leave everything behind to save your life. My parents sent me to this country to protect me, but they altered the course of my life forever. So today, it is common to hear terms as undocumented immigrants, asylum seekers, or refugees. All you have to do is turn on the TV and watch the news, or scroll in social media, and you for sure will find some of these terms. While they all relate to immigration, these are not the same. So what are the differences between these definitions? Undocumented immigrant is an individual living in this country without legal status or proper government documentation. A refugee is a person who fled their country due to fear, persecution, based on religion, war, membership of a particular group, natural disasters, or political issues. The asylum seeker, very similar to a refugee. The person is forced to flee their country for safety. However, an asylum seeker's claims needs to be evaluated by the US government through a deep fear evaluation interview. And it is what it sounds like. It is a bunch of questions trying to define if their claim of fear, it is true. And this is only the beginning of the long process that can take years before asylum is granted. Today, nearly 30 days since my arrival to Dallas, Texas, I have the opportunity to receive people from all over the world. In 2019, a humanitarian crisis brought together a group of different organizations to work with unaccompanied minors in Dallas, Texas. As you can imagine, that caught my attention. Nearly 2,000 children in one room saw these people coming to talk to them, to worship with them, to have spent time with them. But they were desperate. Many came to me and asked for their parents. They asked for their families, and they wanted to know when they will be released. With these children of my own, it was impossible to be indifferent and not respond with comfort to these children. But it was forbidden. You cannot touch them. You cannot be near them. You can just talk to them, and you have to be a few feet away from them. While I was following the rules, one question stuck in my head. Am I actually making a difference on their lives? Refugees and asylum seekers are not a burden. They are instead a shared responsibility globally. It is our duty to create a world where seeking asylum is met with understanding and compassion and collective commitment to humanity. In this perspective, Oakland, the church that I am an associate pastor, and Gracia Viva, the church that I lead, along with other faith community leaders, we were committed to respond to this crisis with a dedication to make a difference. And in a personal level, it was a must to do. How? We wanted to build bridges and not walls. Imagine this metaphor of building bridges. We will be able to foster connections, to humanize the refugee crisis, and dismantle the stereotypes that often surround asylum seekers or immigration in general. We are in this place of building bridges, a community that not only work together as an interfaith or not faith group, we are working together in a mission to serve those who are in need. Dallas response, it was getting boring. It's a welcoming center that emerged in the response to the street releases. And you might be asking, what is a street release? It is what it sounds like. The detention centers come with buses full of people, and they release them on the street, on the bus station, or at the airport. And I want to invite you today to do something. I want to invite you to close your eyes. Imagine right now that you are wearing a uniform from the detention center. Your belongings are in a plastic bag or in an orange net. You don't speak the language. You don't have a phone. You don't know, you never traveled at the airport before. You don't know what it looks like. You don't know where to go. You don't have a family there. How? How will you feel? You can open your eyes. These are the questions that I was asking myself, and we were asking at the church in Dallas response. So after hearing these cases of street releases, we wanted to come together and educate ourselves about what we could do. So we are now a community working with asylum seekers. Not only that is a legal term, but it's a fundamental right for all human beings to ask for asylum. In Oakland and Gracia Viva are working in conjunction with so many leaders, so many churches around the city that supports immigrations. They came up with the idea to use our facilities as a welcoming center, utilizing what we have in our hands. For nearly 3 years, we have served these communities, helping nearly 15,000 individuals and families to be reunited with their families here in the U.S., if they have any. So it is crucial to shift our perspectives about asylum seekers. It's not merely for them to survive, but it's a need to thrive. It is our duty not to feel pity of them, but to extend a helping hand and believe in their potential. But how it is a release day for them? They wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, and they never know that they're going to be taken to Dallas Response. They are transported in buses from different detention centers to our facilities, and we receive 2 or 3 a week with 60 to 100 people in each bus. So upon arrival, we witness their confusion, their sadness, their fear, as they are not informed about where they will be taken that day. The first thing that we do, and that we would like to do every single time, is to release some tension from them. So we do an orientation, and the first thing that we tell them is that they're free and that they are safe. We want them to know that they're no longer in a detention center, that we don't work for the detention centers and we're not part of immigration. We are a group of people extending a hand to them. And we wanted to help them in all the ways that we can to reunite them with their families on the same day. With those words, there's always clapping and tears of joy, of course, to hear the words free and safe. And as the day goes by, we become a family in that day, creating memories that I hope they can carry with them forever. Dallas Response serve as a witness to how their past is merely a comma in their journey, just exactly as it was in mine. When I share my story with them, I love to share that story with them every single time because they can relate to that, and it gives them hope because stories are crucial. They remind us how far we've come. Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat mistakes. Therefore, your stories, my story, our story, it is important. It is students like you who are the future generations who holds the key for a better system. It is through education, understanding, and advocacy that you can shape a welcoming country. Sometimes the education not only comes from the academicals, it comes from relating to one another, by listening the stories of one another, real stories of real people. Sometimes the educational part and the learning experience comes from deconstructing the stereotypes and ideas so rooted from the past. But we cannot only deconstruct ideas, we need to create something new, the new reality, and create a new story. So your story is important, and each one of us play a role in this world. So let us remember that by building bridges and empowering and embracing, by sharing the responsibility, we can help and we can change the story. We can create a more compassionate and successful system. Each one of us have a role in this life journey. And I would love to invite you to watch a video right now of what one day a Dallas Response is. Yep, that one.
Thank you for your interest to volunteer with Dallas Responds. We are only able to do the things we do because of you. This video will help you have a little inside look about what your day will look like while volunteering. When our guests arrive, all of the volunteers gather in the main hallway to welcome them. It is very important to us that they feel safe, welcomed, and in a place that will show them love and support as they begin the next steps of their journey. After welcoming our guests, we escort them to the Blue Room, where we take the forms that they have received from the detention center and we assign them a number that will aid in the processing of their information. After receiving their number, they stay in the Blue Room. There are snacks, food, they're provided lunch while they wait to be called in for intake. Once their number is called, they are escorted into the Green Room for intake. In intake, we receive personal information from the guest, the sponsor's information, and we also help to facilitate their airline flights to their next destination. After intake, we escort them to the clothing closet. There, our guests can get clean socks, clothes, shoes, backpacks, anything that can help them on their flight and the journey ahead of them. After the clothing closet, we have our guests remain in the Blue Room where they can enjoy more snacks and drinks while they await transportation to the airport. The final step for the day is providing them with a boarding pass for their airline flight. Sometimes we have volunteers transport them to the airport, and at other times we utilize services such as Uber. Dallas Responds is an interfaith organization, and we welcome all to volunteer. We cannot do this without you.
So, with this, what it will be the Trinity Valley Community College response to the immigrants and the asylum seekers. That's what you. Thank you.
Hello. Cecily R. Smith is the founder and CEO of Abide Women's Health Services, which exists to improve birth outcomes in communities with the lowest quality of care by offering healthcare and complementary services that are easily accessible, holistic, evidence-based, and free from judgment. As CEO of a startup nonprofit, Cecily has had to wear many hats, such as managing development, including major gifts and a $2.5 million capital campaign, operations and expansion of an easy access clinic, and program implementations and evaluation. Cecily has 20 years of leadership experience and almost a decade of experience as a maternal and racial justice activist, all while going through many challenges, conceiving and walking through difficult pregnancies. Not only is she committed to advocating for justice and dismantling systems of oppression, but she is also building a new liberating reality where rest, resist, and restore are the actions that guide her. Cecily's passion for Black women and for her community is what compelled her to found Abide Women's Health Services in 2017 in the heart of South Dallas. This organization went on to become a federally recognized 501c3 not-for-profit organization in 2018. Through her leadership, Abide is on the map as a breakthrough maternal justice organization, a recognized perinatal safe spot, accredited easy access clinic through Common Sense Childbirth Inc., and Future Birth Center. She is an advocate for honoring the legacy and wisdom of Black midwives, creating more community access to the profession, and in 2022, awarded 5 scholarships through Abide Women to student midwives of color. Cecily was a recipient of the 2021 Rising Leader Fellowship, a program of sojourners funded by the Open Society Foundations, an honorable mention for the Juanita Craft Humanitarian Visionary Award 2020. Cecily has been featured speaking on ABC News Nightline with the Center of Public Justice and on the following podcasts: Black History for White People, Truth's Table, Upside Down, Birth Stories in Color, Non-Threatening Black Girl, Help Her Be Brave, Diamonds for Our Children, and featured in the Dallas Morning News, Black Enterprise, Kevin MD, and many more digital outlets. Through her leadership, Abide was recognized by the CEO magazine with the 2020 Nonprofit of the Year award. In 2022, Cecily was a Public Voices Fellow of the Op-Ed Project and sat on the grant-making panel for Resist. Cecily recently joined Common Sense Childbirth as an easy access clinic, training and accreditation consultant. Founder, CEO, and liberator are just a few of her roles. But the most challenging and rewarding role is as mother to her 4 children and wife to her husband, Ramon. Please welcome Ms. Cecily R. Smith.
That was a mouthful, huh? So, first of all, Matt, I may need some tissue because I'm a big crybaby. I want to thank you all for inviting us to be here to tell our stories. I consider it an honor and a privilege. Before I get into the depths of what I want to share with you all, I want to play a video, and I want to explain this poem. A land acknowledgement or a territorial acknowledgement is a formal statement that acknowledges the original indigenous people of the land. In this case, we acknowledge the indigenous people, the history of this land, and specifically the land that is sunny South Dallas, and the people who have been historically terrorized there, people who look like me.
Remember, elevate the first people, the Wichita, Kikapu, Jumanos, Tawakoni, sowers of squash, of corn, of cooperation and symbiosis, the original people, the keepers and healers of the land. Remember evenings of lullabies lovingly crooned, songs of moon and morning star, infants' tiny fingers tracing lines in the twilight. Scenes of sun-dappled grass houses near and far. The times before, the past, uncolonized. Remember false treaties, slick-talking liars, encroaching, exploiting bringers of disease, chaos, slavery, and genocide. The audacity to take a mother's children and expect love back. The days of darkness ought to have been the end, but the darkness became a womb, righteousness an umbilical cord, enduring a birthright. And we remember this land, stolen, violated, parceled out to enrich whiteness. But for us, the death choke of Jane Elkins, the bombs that felled Horace Wiener's place, the bottoms at Bonton Park Row, Negro Achievement Day at the State Fair, segregation, violent entrapment, eminent domain dealt death. Even now, I-30 subtracts 22 years from life on one side. We still here though. We still here. Oh, the dark days cannot erase what God calls good. This unforgetting land meets our feet, yields lost children back to us, grounds us in ourselves, embodied memories too strong for mere words, roots us in the justice of our dreaming, nestles us beneath her trees, whispers the pain of lynching and trails of tears. She never forgets her children, yet she stays fertile. Hoping and living through cracked concrete and underground networks, enduring and reminding us to do the same. Abundance and collective care, the sharing of pain, the sacredness of labor that brings forth life. This land is not merely ours, a thing to be owned. Our blood and flesh run through her too. We belong to each other, free and connected. To love her is to love ourselves. See, I ask you to see fully the past, present, and future beneath our feet. Enshrined in soil is a history that we will not forget if we stay grounded. Remembering the lullabies of harvest, the wails of loss, the hymns of resistance. Violence's tongue is silenced here by these black and brown hands in this soil. Hope will bloom through baby faces, cultivating healing for this land, commencing reparation on this land, and collective care. Embracing the past and holding out a hand to the future. Singing with the chorus of our lives. We still here.
I asked Sharifa Stevens. She's brilliant, a brilliant lyricist. I asked her to write a land acknowledgement for our organization, Abide Women's Health Services, and she decided to write a poem that fully encompasses just everything, you know. This acknowledgement could be a lecture in and of itself, just all by itself. If you want to see it and learn more even about Sharifa, you can go to our YouTube channel, Abide Women's Health Services, and you can learn a little bit about her. I shared this poem because I believe that context matters, and for you to have a little bit of an understanding as to what brought me here today in unpacking what was going on in my own community. And so I really challenge each of you to read, listen to that poem, unpack every word, Google it, look it up, because there's so much to learn from it. If you don't mind, can you put up my slide? Do I click on it now? Do I click on it now? Okay. All right, cool. Great. Y'all, everything's working. All right. So I grew up in a home with two amazing parents and a younger sister. My life was wonderful. My home was full of love, okay? Full of love. I went to a private Christian school most of my life, where I was probably one of 5 Black people in every school that I attended. And I was comfortable there. In fact, I was more comfortable in these spaces than I was in spaces with people that looked like me. In my home, Fox News was on repeat. My life was sheltered, And I would say that I really did not know what it meant to think independently. I held my parents on a pedestal. Now, my parents are living their best lives on the continent of Africa, the land of our ancestors. There's so much about my past that has influenced where I am today. There's so much about my parents' past that influenced how they raised me. And it's so interesting when your eyes become wide open to what's really going on. So I'm gonna skip over my 20s because trust me, life gets better. It does, trust me. It gets better, y'all. I went to UNT, that's where I met my husband. He's around here, I think he just stepped out to take one of my children to the restroom. Right, Emmanuel? Yeah, okay. So I went to UNT, I was a dance and psychology major. My goal was to be a dance therapist. Did not finish school. School wasn't for me. I ended up working in retail. I was the assistant managers in companies like Restoration Hardware, Pottery Barn, Cole Haan, you know. I loved what I did. I loved meeting new people every day. I loved the people that I worked with. It was great. That was my life in my 20s. I am now a 43-year-old married mother of 4. 4 children, all born at home or at a birth center. I would say that the beginning of my journey of truly thinking independently was over a decade ago. I have had to unpack many biases I have held. I have had to shed much assimilation into a culture that was not my own. And most importantly, I woke up to the reality of racism, injustice, and biases that impact those around me. I began to look at things intersectionally, seeing the complex forms of discrimination via racism, sexism, classism, and how they intersect in the experiences of marginalized individuals or people. So this is just a peek into my background. So imagine how my heart felt when unpacking what did and is still going on around me in South Dallas and all across the country. The poem gave you a taste of the history, but I challenge you to pick it apart, research everything that was written. I pray your eyes are awakened to the realities that are not your own. Now this first slide here, I like to move around. This first slide here is a picture, if you see me in the middle there, I have really long locks. It's me, my baby girl, and the woman who planted a seed in my heart over 10 years ago, and her name is Jenny Joseph, an internationally recognized British-trained midwife who has been practicing midwifery here in this country for over 35 years. 35 years ago, she was appalled at the disparities in Black maternal health outcomes in this country. And upon meeting her, I then became appalled. And thus a seed was planted. In America, land of the free, Black babies are dying at 2 to 3 times the rate of white babies before they reach their first birthday. In America, home of the brave, Black women are dying at 3 to 4 times the rate of white women due to childbirth-related causes. And catch this, 90% of these deaths are preventable. I want y'all to let that sink in for a second. 90% of these deaths are preventable. Meaning, we can do something about it, right? I founded Abide because Black birth workers from all over the country have been shouting these statistics for decades. For decades. And to no avail, Black women and the lives of our children have not been a priority. They haven't. But we have the answers, though. We do. Compassionate, safe, respectful, unbiased healthcare laced with cultural humility. Seems simple, right? But apparently it's not. It's okay, Eli. I opened Abide. Well, Abide was founded in 2017. We became a federally recognized nonprofit in 2018. 2019 is where everything changed for me. I was in Austin at a national perinatal safe spot convening of Black and Indigenous people of color birth workers, okay? And it was phenomenal. I started this work because I was fueled by anger. I didn't understand, why is this happening? 90% preventable, what's going on? And that anger, I recognized at this convening of safe spots, we were challenged that day. We were challenged to shift that anger into love. And so I did. The anger's still there. I mean, I believe there's a such thing as righteous anger. It's still in me. But my love for my sisters, my love for my children, my daughter, people all around me that are facing discrimination in healthcare, that is what shifted everything, okay? And so, thus Abide was born. We opened our Easy Access Clinic in 2020. We became the first nationally accredited Easy Access Clinic in the country in 2021. And today we have a thriving clinic that served 23 clients in 2020 to 454 clients in 2023. Thank you. And this year alone, we anticipate serving providing over 1,200 services across all programs. With the addition of programs such as our mobile units, mental health support, transportation services, and the purchase of our birth center. The first birth center of its kind in DFW that centers people of color. This is impact. This is what saves lives. Abide's goals have always been to reduce infant and maternal mortality, reduce preterm birth, increase baby's birth weight. That's my Eli, he was a 10-pounder. Increase breastfeeding rates, and increase the number of Black midwives and birth workers of color. At the end of the day, we want our babies born at term, thriving in their first year, and we want their mothers to live to see them. Okay, right? I am proud to say that Abide has had 0 infant maternal deaths. Our preterm birth rate is half the national average. We have awarded 9 scholarships to Black student midwives, and with our partnership with a community-based organization called Delighted to Doula, we've awarded 8 scholarships to postpartum doulas, where the vast majority of these deaths occur. This is Kanesha with the mask on. At one point, Kanesha was the only licensed midwife in DFW. Not a nurse midwife, a certified professional midwife. At one time, she was the only Black one in DFW. And over the years, I'm just really happy to say that that number has increased significantly. But we need more if we want to see a drastic change in birth outcomes, not only statewide, but nationwide. And I strongly believe that we have created the infrastructure for that to happen. At this point, all we need is those to support the work that we're doing. There are studies that say that Black babies survive more when they're cared by practitioners that look like them. I know some of you are kind of probably like, what? Huh? But that's the reality. If you're human, you have biases. If you're human, that goes for every single one of us in this room. We have a bias, okay? There are biases, and there is a such thing as systemic racism. That is real, okay? A little uncomfortable, I just said the race word, the R word. What I want you all to know today is that you have the power to make change. You do. I don't have a college degree. I'm not a midwife. I was a doula and a childbirth educator, a very green doula and childbirth educator when I started Abide. But that seed that was planted in me all those years ago, it did something. It did something to my heart, and it compelled me to push through the things that I don't understand and research and try to understand it and put what I've learned into action. And so I'm here today to really inspire you all to really think beyond any bubble that you may live in, because I used to live in one. You got to pop it. Other people's realities that may not be yours are just as valid. And there are biases that we have that we need to shed, that we need to unpack, and recognize that there are times that we're walking through life and not understanding that we are harming others. But when someone confronts you with it, you have an opportunity to change it. I wanted to be a dance therapist. And now we're running a maternal justice organization that will be nationwide. I've said that from the very beginning. So remember that seed that was planted in my heart 10 years ago? This is your seed moment. This is your seed moment. So I want you to ask yourselves, how will you cultivate it? How will you nurture it? How will that seed grow in your heart? Okay? I will end with this. About 5 years ago, I learned that my mother's side descended from the Kru tribe. And they would be in what we would call modern-day Liberia. Okay? I learned that the Kru tribe was known for they were known for navigating the seas. Okay? They were also known for relentlessly resisting colonization. When I learned that, I was like, okay, that explains it. They basically gave those who sought to enslave them hell. They did. In fact, they would rather end their lives than to be enslaved. I have the blood of the Kru people running through my veins and through my work. And through my work is my act of resistance. Thank you.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen next. We're going to have a little chaos for just a couple minutes. We are going to invite our guests up to the stage to have our Q&A. We need to collect your note cards, hopefully, with some excellent questions on them. And so if you will pass them to the end of your row, Mr. Risco will come around. Donna Bennett will come around. Anybody else want to volunteer to come? Okay. Donna Godwin will come around, Joanna's coming around, and then we will have our Q&A.
Good. Smart. Beautiful.
Just in case. Okay. Is that off?
No.
There we go. Much better.
Test.
Does everybody have their mic on? You want to do a little mic check real quick?
Mic check.
Mic
1 2
check.
1 2.
All right. Anybody want to drop a beat or? No? Okay. That is not my domain. That is for sure. Well, I would just like to say thank you.
Thank you.
We have it. Yeah. Like I said, we have not done something like this in a long time. And I don't know, it's kind of going how we had hoped. And so thank y'all for being here. Okay, and on the fly here, I'm going to see if we have some good questions. Okay, here's an easy one to start. Someone is asking, what can I do to volunteer? So obviously we have an obvious volunteer organization with Dallas Responds. I don't know if you need volunteers, but if someone is interested in what you're doing, Cecily, or what you're doing, Sunshine, how could people take some concrete action if they're interested in what you're doing to actually get involved? Well, we'll start with Pastor Marquez first.
Okay, we have Facebook, we have a website, we have a Sign Up Genius, we have texting, we send text every time. So if anyone wants to volunteer, all you have to do is reach out to Dallas Response in our website or in our social media. And I am sure that I can assure you that some of us working there is gonna contact you. And the first question it will be if you wanted to be added in our text list, which is going to be so much easier for us. It is being so much easier for us to send a text and say, hey, we're having a bus today and it's going to be so-and-so numbers. Why the text and why we wanted to organize it that way? Because sometimes the buses got canceled. Sometimes the buses, we have a lower number than we were expecting at the beginning. So things change and we work with the flow. We work as we can. So, but yeah, I mean, and you can contact me, I mean, whenever we finish today, I mean, you can contact me and I can give you more information if you need, but you can Google Dallas Response and you will see more information there and the way to sign up for volunteering. And we have different positions. We have intake, we have people helping with meals. We have like volunteers like these wonderful people here that came with me, volunteering being travel escorts. We have people booking tickets. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of things that we can do. There's no way that you're going to get there and say like, hey, I don't fit in any of these positions. No, we're going to find something that you're going to be able to do. And I am sure that with all the skills and gifts and talents that we have, we are going to be able to do something.
Okay, for us, we're a healthcare clinic, and so it's kind of limited on the type of volunteers that we need, but I know that we do a lot of tabling at health fairs and different fairs around DFW. We have a material goods closet that always needs to be organized. We're expanding our clinic, so we may need volunteers to help paint and just do various things. So I would say email info@abidewomen.org. and inquire. And sometimes we don't even know what we need. So you may have a skill set that is something that you can offer, and we just kind of take it from there.
Actually, my people, the Carancua, we are actively fighting an oil distribution facility, and our success does rely entirely on community and mutual aid. If you are interested in learning more on helping our fight against this oil distribution facility, we have a website, carancuas.com, that you can visit, submit a question or a comment. I also have an Instagram page where I post all of our updates. It's super long, Carancua Chicharra. My mom's right here. Say hi, Mom. She will help you if you're interested in doing any of that.
Okay, this is not a question, but someone wrote a comment, and I think this event was a success. This person wrote, "These women are what I want to be."
Thank you.
Okay, Cecily, I think this question is probably directed towards you. This is a question I wanted to ask. Why? Why are Black women and babies dying? What's the low-hanging fruit that makes it preventable, that leads to these diverse outcomes?
This could be a lecture. Simple word, racism. It comes in many forms. It comes in biases. It comes in not trusting and believing Black women. You know, there were textbooks that said that Black people had a higher pain tolerance than white folk. You know, so you gotta kind of look at like the history of what's happened in this country and the dehumanization of what I call Black image bearers in this country. The vast majority of these deaths happen in the postpartum period. So there's postpartum hemorrhage is one of them. But it doesn't stop. Like, a lot of people believe that it's just the social determinants of health. You know, it's poverty, it's lack of employment, it's a lack of resources. But when you strip all of that away, like, it is a much deeper, insidious issue. And I mean, just Google Serena Williams and what she went through. You know, she was not believed, and she could have died because she knew her body. She knows her body. And she had to force people to listen to her, to get her the care that she needed, you know? And so when you look past, like, it doesn't matter if you're extremely wealthy or if you're just getting by. In fact, there are studies that show that those who are educated Black women are dying at a higher rate than uneducated white women. It's deep. It's really deep. And I mean, I'm happy to discuss further, but I could talk forever about this.
Thank you. This one is for Isabelle, and it's a question that I think many people have. I don't think it directly relates to your work. So if you have an opinion and would like to talk about this, but when it comes to immigration and people who are seeking asylum, do we need to worry about people who are abusing that process?
It's like, let's take a deep breath right here. In my personal opinion, I think no one, and I can say this on a personal experience, I don't think no one will be willing to risk their lives in order to have fun or to abuse a process. I think when you face the realities of their lives, like I did on mine, and my parents faced their reality, there is an ultimate decision that you have to take. And it seems like it probably right now with the influx that we have with a lot of people asking for asylum. But like I said before, I mean, this is a privilege or a right that has been implemented forever. That we've seen more people today, probably, or maybe we never put so much attention to these people. So it could be both or it could be none. So, but I don't think no one will be willing to risk everything. I've seen people that lost their children traveling, crossing the jungles, crossing deserts, crossing the river. I've seen people lost their loved ones. So I don't think no one will do that just to have a benefit of that system.
Thank you.
Clap it, sister.
There was a question. I need to read these. I need to reread some of these. Okay, so I want to ask one of my questions so that I can read this note card a little bit better. In your land acknowledgement, there was a line that said something about I-30 takes 22 years. Do you want to say what that means? Because I don't think everybody understands what that means.
Yes, absolutely. So, are any of you familiar with Dallas? Do y'all go to Dallas ever? Some of you. So there's I-30, and I-30 essentially separates the southern sector of Dallas from North Dallas. So on one side of I-30 is South Dallas, sunny South D, where the people are sunny. And on the other side is North Dallas and Highland Park, Lake Highlands, okay? A different world. And so there have been studies. I mean, you can look at this, all of the, what is the documents that the Parkland Hospital comes out with. When we look at all the social determinants and the community health assessments, there we go. It shows that Black men die at, their life expectancy is 22 years less than white men, okay? And the dividing line is I-30. And I just want to kind of go a little bit deeper in that. Many of you start looking up redlining, start looking up white flight, begin looking up the bombs in Bonton, the bombings in many predominantly Black communities. In South Dallas, white flight happened, and when white flight happened, jobs moved, employment moved. It affected the community. And so when you start to consider lack of employment and access to healthy foods, access to transportation, access, all of the access was removed, you know? And we would be ignorant to say that things that happened years ago don't impact our communities today. And they do, tremendously.
Thank you. Okay, I think I can synthesize this series of questions. So, Sunshine talked about colonization. Pastor, you talked about the violence in your home city. Cecily, you talked about racism as a cause of, or racial bias as a cause of some of these diverse or disparate outcomes. And the question is, were there any laws to prevent all of this? Can the law prevent all of this?
Okay. So actually, this is perfect. So just a few moments ago, we had a question about immigration. I'm going to say this to lay a foundation of what I'm about to share with you. As I look in this room right now, you are immigrants to me. But when y'all, or if it's not you, if it's when the settler ancestors got here, they colonized, which means they came from one place to another and very systematically decided to oppress and move the indigenous peoples from where they were. In order to do that, they created laws and rules and legislation that would then serve as the foundation for absolutely everything else. It's been said multiple times during this lecture that what has happened in the past doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It continues to echo in contemporary spaces. So aren't there laws that can prevent this? Yes and no. It is a very smart and, again, systematic and intentional operation of bureaucracy that is intended to make it very hard for brown and black people to live normal lives. Yeah.
There is laws for everything, like my sister was saying right now. And on the asylum seekers part, they are welcome in this country, right? We say that we are a welcoming country and that we welcome everyone. But there's always buts, right? You are welcome, but we're going to have a big questionnaire for you. And you have to prove, okay, that you are in danger, whatever that is. You are granted asylum, you know, you got it, you win. You are welcome in this country, but you cannot work. You have to have a sponsor. That sponsor has to be with a legal status here and make tons of money to be able to support you or your whole family. Are those laws are helping these people, honestly? I think there is much to do still. Yes, we do have laws, and yes, they are helping, but the system is not working with these laws. And we have to recognize that. We have to know that, that these laws are not, we're not looking for perfection, but the system right now for migrants and for people, I mean, not only for Hispanic people, because one of the misunderstandings probably is that only Hispanic people travel and wanting to cross to this country. Let me open your eyes. We have received in our place Russian people, Chinese, Hindus, Latin America, all over Latin America, okay? Mexico is the last. We're not opened the borders for Mexico. The reason, just because we are right here, just crossing the river. That is the excuse. That is the law. So when we talk about these immigration laws for all of the people, there are different situations and different ways that probably we could work this. But right now, the system, it needs to be in a different way to work for them.
I mean, I just co-sign each of them, and Sunshine really nailed it too, as it relates to my fight. So we can move to the next one.
I'm getting texts now, questions. So if anybody has my number, feel free. And if you have my number, feel free to give it out. So, given that we are heading into election season, are there any policies that you would like to see or attention brought by candidates to any of these issues? What policies could make a material change in the work y'all do?
Gee whiz. What policies can make material change in the work I do? Gosh, it wouldn't so matter much about the policy that is presented or approved as it would be the persons behind the formation of the policy. And with even that said, we just talked about how there are already policies in place that are designed to help us, kinda. And that's because they are not written by people who have other people's interest in mind. We can, outside of the election coming up, we can see globally there are so many wars and genocides happening all over the globe. And there's no way that it is complicated. It is a simple issue of people refusing to give kindness to others who don't look like them, whether they realize it or not. So is there a policy that can be put into effect? I don't think so, but that's just my opinion.
there needs to be stories behind the context of any law that it needs to be put in place. The context matter, the stories matter. And if you have a group of people that they never migrate, that they don't know, that they don't understand the context of the countries of these people, if they don't know, they never been out, or they just go to these countries to have a beautiful vacation, that's not the context that you're looking for. And if you don't know that context, it is impossible to write a right policy. And that's just my opinion.
This one's difficult for me because I cannot stay in politics. I truly believe that the real work happens with grassroots people. It starts with the people. We all have witnessed certain policies being made, a million meetings and surveys, and oh my gosh, it just seems never ending. We say the same thing over and over and over again, especially when it comes to like the social determinants of health and community health assessment. I go to those. Every time a new community health assessment comes out, it's always the same thing. And at this point, we need to recognize that you can't change the heart of a person with a policy. It has to be a heart change. It really does. And I have witnessed it when you are having those face-to-face conversations with people unpacking this stuff, you know? And then that's where the grassroots efforts happened. I've seen tremendous work through Resist organization. And I've witnessed, as being on their grant making panel, hundreds, if not thousands, of grassroots organizations led by BIPOC individuals all across the country that are making significant changes in their communities. And so that's where I really believe the real change happens. It's with you. It's not with somebody wearing a suit in DC. Now we can go and we can influence and we can, speak our piece, which we should continue to do, but it begins with us.
Yep, totally.
Thank you. More questions rolling in. This one is directed specifically towards Sunshine. What do you think about cultural appropriation?
So let me preface this by saying what we've been saying, which is this is my opinion. I'm so lucky that I have so much love in my heart. Underneath that, there's so much sadness. And underneath that, there's anger. But love is the most. And I understand. I feel so bad for y'all who have been stripped of your culture. And so whenever you encounter something beautiful, you want it. And you don't know how to ask for it, you just take it because that's what you've been taught. You've been given that right. You've been told you have this right. So when it comes to cultural appropriation, I understand, but I must ask you to have some introspection, and before you see something beautiful and you'd like to take it and you'd like to use it or wear it or hang it in your home, ask yourself a little bit of questions. Like, what exactly does this mean to me? Do I know the history? Where does this come from? Who has given this to me? There's a difference between appreciation and appropriation. In my opinion, to appropriate is to take something in complete ignorance and turn it into something else. To appreciate is to educate yourself, to talk with the communities of whomever cultures you are trying to appreciate, and get this, ask permission. It's really simple. I've been in so many homes where there are dream catchers hanging. My people don't have dream catchers, so I cannot speak about the appropriateness of this, but I can tell you that the dream catchers I have been gifted to me. They are not ones that I've bought. That's part of that conversation. So be careful. Ask yourself questions. Be humble. Ask permission. Ask.
So I'm just thinking right now of the dream catcher over my daughter's bed.
Yeah, think about it.
And I don't even know where it came from. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. I do know what you mean.
I don't know its origin. I don't know why we have it.
I'd be curious to know about where that dream catcher's going next.
I think it was like
up to you.
I think it was like a present, that she got as a, it was like a craft, right?
A gift shop.
And well, I'm trying to remember, Sunshine, if it was you who said, who gave us the images that come to our head, right? And so I teach philosophy, and there's this there's the meme that you see on social media, but there's the philosophical concept of a meme, which is an idea that has its own life. And there's like no real origin to it, and you can't lay it at the feet of one particular person or group. It emerges, and it lives in our minds. And I feel like there's so many things that we don't even know where they come from.
And you know what's fantastic is that there are people who do. And most times the people who do know the actual source are indigenous people whose creation stories remember before they were two-legged. And though these knowledges might just be oral, they're kept. But then we start to get into the whole conversation of, well, what is official knowledge that could be passed down? And that's also racist.
Okay, I think we're going to maybe have one final question. This one is to Cecily. What are the advantages and disadvantages of home birth for the mother, specifically for the mothers you serve?
So most of our mothers and birthing folk, they birth in the hospital. We're an easy access clinic, so we're a triage. This is people come to us when people have been rejected from other people. They're too late in their pregnancy. They've come from, I think one of our clients came from like Costa Rica and couldn't find anyone that could help support. And so no one is ever turned away at our clinic. And if we are unable to support them, maybe they fall out of scope, maybe they're high risk, we help them navigate the system. We help them find the help that they need and the support that they need. Now, we will, later this year, begin offering home birth services and then eventually birth center. Eventually a birth center. The advantages of having a home birth or a birth center birth is that you're able to birth on your own terms. And I want to be very clear that when we're talking about these types of births, these are for people that are low risk, okay? Midwives are incredible. They're incredible. You go to a midwife, you're not looked at like a number. Like you're spending like an hour with your midwife, you're developing a relationship with them. It's really a beautiful experience. It's amazing. And so you birth on your own terms. You are able to control your environment, control the amount of people that you want around your birth. You can eat when you want. Like there's so many wonderful benefits to home and birth center birth. It's not for everyone. I'm definitely an advocate for it. However, I'm also an advocate for informed choice. Not everyone has that choice. I believe birth center births, it's all been appropriated to a certain extent. This is what we did. We birthed at home. My ancestors birthed at home. Black and indigenous folk, we birthed the nation. We caught everyone's babies. We did. We caught our relatives' babies, the people down the street, and we caught those who enslaved us, their babies. Okay? And so it's not this is not something new, but what historically what this country did and the medical industry did is they penalized granny midwives, and they started a campaign to really show the world that they didn't know what they were doing, you know? And birth, instead of it being holistic and in the home and in the safety of your own environment, it became medicalized. You know, there's a long history about that. I strongly suggest you look even further into it, but I hope that I answered that fully. Did I?
Don't look at me.
No, I'm like, do I remember the question?
We do need to close. I would just like to ask, is there any one last thing you would like to say to us before we finish our time together?
I would say thank you very much for sitting and listening. It might not seem it, but I'm watching all of y'all. And I see if you are looking back. I see if you're distracted. I see if you're able to be present. I truly appreciate if you've chosen to be present here with me today. And if you were unable to be present, I appreciate you for sitting here anyway and hearing me, because there's medicine in that too. Thank you. And please practice kindness with my people.
Time is the most precious thing that we all have. And I want to thank you all for listening, for being here, for listening to our stories. It's just a little piece of the big puzzle. It's just our little realities. And I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to share these stories with you. And hopefully you can take something with you, some inspiration, some desires of learning more, you name it. But from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for spending your time with us.
There's a couple things I want to share. There's 3 R's. You saw them in the poem: rest, resist, restore. I believe that rest combined with resistance, meaning resistance of toxic systems and systems that harm, produce restoration. Restoration of our bodies, restoration of our communities. And so I challenge you to embody rest, resist, restore. And lastly, I will leave you with a quote. It's mine. It's to get rid of the weed, for those gardeners out there, to get rid of the weed, you must pull it up by the root, right? So let's uproot the system and plant seeds that bear fruit.
In closing, Sunshine is an artist. She has some art here if you would like to take a look, and I believe you can purchase some as well, right? So we were supposed to go until noon. It's 11:45, so hopefully y'all will kind of maybe stick around, and if y'all want to come up and say anything, shake their hand, say thank you, ask a question that you didn't want to write down or whatever. But thank you for coming. Thank you for educating us and letting us learn something new today.
Fabulous.
Thank you so much.